Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. Hope you're doing well this evening. Looking forward to chatting some penultimate episodes with you tonight.
Yeah, well, apparently I'm at peak energy, according to you, which I was surprised by, considering how I feel like I just am drained. However, it's so funny to me because I still feel like I've been more drained in the past, due to my job, because I was doing an extrovert job for years, and which requires a lot more energy for little old introvert me. So now that I'm in an introvert job, the long days are long and I'm drained, but I'm not nearly that same level. But I did watch One Piece and Ahsoka this week and have some thoughts that I can remember, and things that I don't, then, we don't have to talk about those things because I try to do a good job about blocking out what I don't like. No, I'm just joking.
No, what bullshit are you like?
I'm only human. Humans are naturally more inclined to remember what they don't like than what they like. Yeah. Okay?
Oh, God. If anyone has listened more than like 30 seconds to our podcast, they know you're never shy about giving your honest opinions, which is why we have been able to sustain this for so long, because when we like something, we like something. When we don't, we don't. And we are not afraid to say it.
No. I mean, we are definitely shills, but not to the overtly extent.
Yeah. We didn't cross any lines at all during for either of the strikes, which I'm happy to. And we don't have to go too much into it, but for folks who know, the WGA did finally end their strike. They managed to get an agreement with the AMPTP, the studios, and unanimously approved a deal as far as the leadership, and it's out to the membership now to vote, I guess, between now and I think next Monday. Following Monday, I want to say maybe the 9th. So, but yeah, I mean, I posted on our socials if you want to look at the new contract that goes through May 1 of 2026, some of the details, but they definitely got, kudos to them for holding out and for the best deal possible. And looks like overall people are very pleased with it. So.
Yeah. I've heard nothing but good things about this deal. And this is just like, I'm glad we're finally getting movement here. And now we got the Actors Guild to go. And I'm sure that by the looks of it, they're probably going to end up with a good deal as well. And then we can just wrap up 2023. Every deal is in place, and then bring on the content.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that was, I know that was almost sank the deal, because that with the writers, where I think they still wanted to, of course, show solidarity with the SAG Guild, because they were out there picketing together and stuff. And apparently Bob Iger got up and walked out of the room, but cooler heads prevailed. They were able to, get back to work. They could start writing again. Got great protections for AI, as far as just making sure that, AI can't write or rewrite material. Writer can choose when to use it, when they're giving their services. If a company has to disclose it. And then, so big wins there. And also on the residuals, which I know is another big point that, the Writers Guild was wanting to make sure that they had adequate compensation for residuals, especially in the streaming era that we're in now. And so that was another big plus, and also just transparency and streaming numbers too, which I think was another big sticking point. I mean, if Netflix can show oh, this is the number one show on their platform, whenever we turn it on, then surely they can like share with the writers and actors what the numbers are, because they know it. So that was a bunch of BS that the studios were trying to say, oh no, we didn't have those numbers, but yeah, really. But yeah, but I won't take up too much time on the details of the agreement. I think, I will post it I did post it on our socials, and I'll post a link here on our in our show notes for this podcast if you're interested in seeing in more details of the agreement that the Writers Guild was able to come up with. And let's close out bit by saying, I know the Screen Actors Guild has mentioned that they'll start their negotiations up again next week, and and trust things that come directly from them, because of course everybody and their brother will say, oh, I heard it got this and this is going this way or that way. But the Screen Actors Guild was very clear. The only trust things that come from their various accounts and not from other sources. So, and hopefully they'll get it worked out soon and everybody can get back to work. And looks like at least the fall season for broadcast television has been saved, and movies and other shows can get back to production as well.
Yeah, but not Heels.
No. Nope.
Sorry. I had to. It came in my mind, and I was like, you just will open the door. Open the door. Yeah. Shout out to Stephen Amell, who such a polarizing figure.
He is.
Man, the good old essay. But anyways, well, progress and like it's interesting, because whenever there are these known breaks, you immediately get this sense of, oh my God, what are we going to talk about for X amount of shows? And we were feeling that way, but thankfully One Piece came out and Ahsoka, so we've been having that, and we know shows are coming, so we have a plan. We're going to get to all of the big ones that listeners who know us would expect us to cover. And then we're going to do our end of the year wrap up and start off January talking about God knows what. Yeah. But January, the last 2 years between Peacemaker and The Last of Us, we've had some pretty good content roll out in January. I'm not expecting that for 2024.
Hey, you never know. We might find our next One Piece.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Our next One Piece, which we have 2 episodes to talk about, including its penultimate episode, The Girl with the Sawfish Tattoo. But before that, we had the episode 6, which was The Chef and the Chore Boy. And Will, correct me if I'm wrong, but the other night, I believe you texted me when you watched this episode and said that you teared up a little.
I did.
Not surprising.
As I get older, the more sentimental I get.
At what part did you tear up? Was it just the beginning?
The end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The end. Okay. Do you want to elaborate on what?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess we could. Yeah. I mean, well, I mean, I think whenever Sanji and Zeph, like, whenever he finally leaves and he joins Luffy's crew, and this the whole break, just how they really set things up as far as their relationship, and really did a great job of just showing why things are the way they are at the Verity, as far as no waste and following your dreams. And it was just so many things that this episode, I think this season, it has gotten, each episode gets better and better for me, and I get more drawn in to the point where I'm like, shoot, I gotta wait for God knows how long before we get season 2, because I've gotten I didn't anticipate getting so invested into the story and these characters, but I really have, and showing Sanji and Zeph's, how they met, and their backstory in this episode. Whenever we did get to that ending and when Zeph encouraged Sanji to follow the dream that they both mutually had, it resonated with me. And I did get choked up whenever Sanji was saying goodbye.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And I was listening to Christian Harloff's reaction to this episode right before we started recording tonight. And he felt similarly about how this episode really fleshed out that dynamic between Zeph and Sanji, whatever.
Yeah.
Saji,
yeah.
I felt it 4 different ways on here. Yeah. so there's that. But this, I was also thinking about how this whole season has just done a good job of really having an overall through line while setting up a world, while giving backstories to the important characters, and not like, this is the first episode where, I will be honest, I think they could have made some different choices with the editing of the flashbacks, just because I'm very used to, okay, we're going to spend a little time in the past and then bring to the present, a little time in the past. But man, I felt like I was on that like island thing with them for 30 minutes. Like,
yeah.
Okay, let's get going now.
yeah. Oh no, yeah,
but,
and that's for me, that made the payoff, because that editing choice. So I think in this episode it worked.
Right. Which I guess it did in the long run. It just took a moment for me to adjust to it, I should say.
Yeah.
But I like how the flashbacks, it's not just that they mirror what's going on in the present, and they don't even do that, which is a classic DC TV thing that we got used to with a lot of the Arrowverse shows. But it's more that we're going to show you the past of these characters so that you are more informed about their present behavior.
Yeah.
Which is such a smart writing choice, because you need to understand why these characters are, like, the choices and the rationale behind them. And while at the same time maintaining some mystery, like, you're just seeing a specific moment that informed who they are at the moment, but you're not seeing everything necessarily. There's a lot of gaps that are still to explore, especially with good old Grandpa Garp and Luffy.
Yeah.
So I think that in terms of this episode and the next episode we're talking about, their penultimate episode, I liked how we didn't just leave Zeph is still around, and actually his interaction with Garp in the next episode, the penultimate episode, it's just they earned it, because you really did feel like you got 2 father figures talking about their sons who they wanted certain things for. So it was really smart. And I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, I think.
Do you think I like the penultimate better than Chef and the Chore Boy? But we'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, because but to your point, that's the other thing, that the way they have structured their backstories and the color present day events, you're right. I mean, whenever we do get various moments in this show, most of the time they are earned moments, and it's not just a plot contrivance. And so, and I think that's why, as I said, I did not anticipate that I would get so invested in the series, whenever we first started. But I mean, every with the exception of like maybe episode 4, where I think we were both of us were kind of like, not so, down with the Black Cat Pirates, and, I can't even remember their lead, Korami or whatever, character. Yeah, he's so forgettable. Cause that was the only time I actually like maybe picked up my phone watching while watching this series, cause he was such a forgettable guy. But otherwise, I'm like locked in. But I think you're right. I mean, whenever Zeph and Sanji are like on that island after, getting shipwrecked there, and they do spend a lot of time there, but it does color like why, whenever, they only had, at the time, they felt a limited amount of stores, and as far as food and all, and of course he sends them to the other side of the rock. And then whenever we do find out what truly does happen, it makes sense now for like when we are introduced to these characters at the very end in episode 5, why there's this no waste as far as, everything is used. And also, again, is those moments are like earned, and it also explains why characters are the way they are.
Right.
And even like at the very beginning of the episode where, Zeph is helping to stitch up Zoro, and at first this was like, when I first happened, I was like, why is this, why is he agreeing to do this? I mean, he has no like interest in helping these folks out, especially given what we saw before with, if he found out like if Sanji had fed that one guy, the meal, he would lose it, and how he made Luffy like, earn his keep as far, pay off his debt and stuff. So, but then, when things happen later, you're like, oh, I understand why he was willing to, use the old pirate sailor trick to like help Zoro out, and to keep him alive. So, yeah, this was a good, solid episode in that it was a lot of world building and character exploration with these folks, but also just some good adventure as well.
Yeah. We got Arlong, and the first showdown between Arlong and Luffy, and who just, this character of Arlong, he has a big presence in the penultimate episode, because he's like the big bad of this season. And the actor playing him, is having so much fun.
Yeah.
He's in all this makeup,
yes,
but man, he is having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could really tell that between the first time we see him and in this most recent episode, that he was like, oh, you're giving me all these lines, I'm going to eat it all up. I'm going to go all in on this and match the energy of some of the other actors in the main cast. But I think like Arlong, and then of course Buggyhead comes back up again.
Yep. Let me in here.
Oh my God. Buggy, like both of those actors are clearly having fun and clearly exuding this confidence of owning their character actions, and just eating up the script. Where I think the Black Cat Pirates, it felt too much like a caricature. It wasn't fun. It was stuff we have seen a million times, the whole ploy of it, and it's night and day difference. Where Arlong is somewhat something we have seen before too, because he talks a lot about fishman rights, and how he wants to overthrow the humans, and how he he's basically a gangster.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it.
Yep.
He's paying off the cops who are
Yep.
mouse, the mice.
That's great.
And
Yeah.
then he's taking over villages and getting payments for quote unquote protection and doing all those stuff. So he's a gangster. But it's just it's fun and it's interesting, and the actors portraying it are really owning it.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Where I don't mind the few things where I'm like, I've seen that before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. I mean, he really, because, he is, because, a lot of times with prosthetics, people like it doesn't work. But I mean, you're right. He is using the prosthetics to his benefit, and just the presence, and like you said, the voice and everything. You're right. I mean, I can't say anything more that you haven't said about Arlong. But one thing about Arlong, and especially, we do get the reveal in this episode that we find out that Nami, is working for him. And, and she was, and I think back to, was it the second episode where they were on their little ship, where the first ship they had, or was it another? Was it later? Yeah. Where she contacted him, and when I was watching that, I was like, did Sarah call Arlong and Nami? Did you call that? Okay. For some reason, I thought you did.
No, I think that was at the very end of the first episode.
Yeah.
Where we hear her call someone.
Right.
And at that point, I didn't even know Arlong was a thing.
Right. Yeah. But I didn't know, like, especially like after we saw Arlong get introduced in the second episode when they were in Buggy Circus.
Nope.
Okay.
I wasn't even thinking about that. Like, they did a very good job about not picking that up. I mean, I think they we didn't see the tattoo until this episode.
No, we didn't. Yeah.
Which, okay, I didn't see the tattoo. When the heck did Zoro see the tattoo? Okay? I just want to know, because she clearly left while he was still unconscious. Okay? So when did Zoro see the tattoo? And yes, people, there better be this love triangle brewing between Sanji, Zoro, and Nami, okay?
Oh, yeah.
I'm calling this stuff. And personally, I'm on Team Zoro, but Sanji is Sanji, so who knows? Yeah. But it's not going to be Luffy. Luffy and Nami are like brother, sister.
Yeah.
Brother, sister, no.
Yeah.
So, but no, I didn't call it. I wish I had, but I wasn't. Like I said, they just did a very good job about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it. I like how I don't feel like they're wasting my time.
Yeah.
They're not introducing anyone necessarily that doesn't allow Luffy and crew to get something, or to grow in an area where they're lacking, or to add another member of the crew. Like even though the Black Cat Pirates were the least our least favorite episodes, they still allowed us to get the ship. They still allowed us to get Usopp. Like, things were happening. And on top of that, we have a major B storyline here that I am shocked by how much I really enjoy the Marines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not mad when we go back and forth, because the dynamics between not just Garp and Colby, but I'm going to give a shout out to Haircut, because Haircut has grown, and he's still very similar to when we first met him, but they've allowed him to also be viewed as, he's not wrong. He's not right. he has a very interesting way to communicate things, and he does have this entitlement thing, but none of these characters are perfect. No. And in the penultimate episode, when they were at Bartide, I was just thinking about how much I really like Colby and Haircut conversations. Like, it's older brother, little brother type thing going on here. Yeah. And I'm enjoying that. So like I said, I hate it when I feel as though they are wasting time with storylines that don't go anywhere, that are kind of useless, or like not adding more, or dealing with characters I don't like. But I like pretty much everyone. I will be honest, my least favorite character is Usopp, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, Usopp hasn't really, I mean, he's there, but I just feel like, I don't know, and I know that's, we'll talk about that in a bit, but yeah, as far as other things for episode 6, before we move to 7, you're thinking about the dynamic with Cole, the Marines, you're right, and of course we get Mihawk reporting back to Garp after he lets Luffy go, and also thinking that moving it forward to Kobe and Garp's discussion about changing tactics and let Luffy be a pirate, and you see that you see like the after we learn that reveal, and we see the start of Garp trying to teach Luffy how to be a Marine and stuff, and it becoming very clear that the tactics that Garp continues to use, he's just it's just not working. So it was very interesting when Kobe suggested that to him, to just let him be a pirate and treat him like, but Garp took that as a way like, okay, well, if he's going to be a pirate, then we're going to treat him like a pirate and not, stop pulling my punches. Which, I'm wondering, I don't know if Kobe was again, like you said with Haircut, Haircut would not have been surprised to hear that, whereas Kobe was like, oh, I didn't mean for it to be that way. I wanted to, Kobe's a lot like Luffy, and he wants to aspire to be different from the other, the other pirates. Yeah, he's so naive.
Yeah. Colby knows that Luffy is a good pirate. Mm-hmm. But Garp does not view it in that way, and it's not because he views it as all pirates are bad. He doesn't want Luffy to be a pirate because he always wanted Luffy to be a Marine, and he's not over that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good conflict because I haven't seen one of these in a while. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a relatable conflict between a parental figure and a kid. Yeah. And you're right. It's also at the same time it mirrors Colby. It's having Luffy be a good pirate and having Colby be a good Marine allows both sides to be gray. Yeah. And for us to recognize that in this world, there's not necessarily bad guys and good guys. They're just, you're my enemy and you're my friend.
Yeah.
However, this world wants to put people in those boxes.
Yeah.
And, which causes divisiveness but at the end of the day, we do learn about, with Mihawk, about the Marines getting, pirates to do their dirty work. And then we also see Arlong use the Marines to not catch him and get paid off. So it's, they're building a world that is relatable, but at the same time, just very, very fantasy.
Yeah.
So it's really well done. But yeah, so that takes us to the girl with the sawfish tattoo, where we get our Nami flashback episode in Coco Village.
Yep.
Coco Village. Very heavy with the flashbacks, rightfully so. This has been arguably the biggest mystery of this season, is what was Nami, or who is Nami? Where did she come from? And we get shown how she becomes a part of Arlong's crew. And again, she's another one who we're dealing with a person who, she's always been a thief.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that, where we're introduced way before Arlong gets there, she's already stealing things.
Yeah.
Which allows another mystery, like, why did she want that book? What is with her and maps? Like, she always says she hates pirates. She's been on a crew. She clearly understands them. So it's even, like I said, I think I said this before, even though we're getting flashbacks, there's still not enough to say, like, I know everything about this character.
Exactly.
Which is great.
Yeah.
But what are some of your takeaways from the girl with the sawfish tattoo?
Yeah. This, to my point earlier about wishing there were more episodes this season, this was the one where I was just like, man, I need more. I know we got one left, but I need more, because they really did open the door to, like, Nami's background, and like you said, she's always been a thief, but it was in a furtherance of something, she was the navigator, and we see why she was the navigator. I mean, from a very early age, she was drawing maps, and seems like she was the one who drew the map to the Grand Line. So from her stealing the books and stuff, and also, so yeah, I mean, this episode, it was definitely very heavy, and especially, very heartbreaking, on the one hand, especially once, we see, how Nami and her adoptive sister were, paired together, and how Arlong has this history with this village. And then, of course, the sadness of it is Nami was doing all these things. She put that cold, hard exterior because of what happened to her adoptive mother, and her sister. I mean, whenever people that were close to her, she lost them. And so I guess that was her defense mechanism with the Straw Hats, was to try not to get too close, because she didn't want to have a repeat of what she witnessed whenever she was a little girl happen to them. If it was like with the pirates. Yeah,
but she was also dealing with the secret. I mean, we find out she doesn't go back to Coco Village because she made a deal with Arlong, and Arlong destroyed Coco Village and have been, like, holding them hostage to an extent, and bleeding them dry of their money and everything. And they despise her for that, especially her sister, who she was with her sister when her adoptive mother sacrificed herself so that the girls can survive. But Nami decided to make a deal after that with Arlong, and say, you need my help, and you have something I want, which is Coco Village. So we're going to make a deal. And the deal was for 100 million berry. And so over the 8 years between then and now, she's been stealing and getting stuff for Arlong, and she finally collected that. But she was surprised when she told Arlong, hey, I have 100 million berry. Let me go get it. Nami, you're so smart. You played a card too soon. Why?
Yep.
But it would have worked. He would have reneged either way.
Yeah, he would have.
But now we know, like, Nami, yes, she's a thief, but she's clearly Robin Hood. She's trying to buy back Coco Village and protect Coco Village. I thought it was a really good scene at the very end when she's running and ends up starting to stab the tattoo, and then Luffy's there and she asks for Luffy's help.
Yeah.
The actress who plays Nami did a really good job in that moment.
She did.
Going from like anger, strength to almost hopelessness.
Yeah.
And that really is Luffy's superpower. He is just a beacon of hope and sees the good in people. And that's what he's been trying to communicate to everyone who's been second guessing him along the way, especially within the last 2 episodes here, is that Luffy has really good people instincts.
Yeah.
And then he sees something in them and can motivate them to find it for themselves and see it in themselves as well. And hey, that's what got Zoro to be like, I'm ride or die for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they almost killed Zoro in the last episode.
But this waiter gotta go.
Yeah. I love that dynamic between Sanji and Zoro, the waiter. You know, he's the waiter. You know, you just remember your place, waiter. Yeah. But to your point about Nami, I think, you know, one of the things I thought about while you're describing that scene where she was just so helpless. But you know, and I think why again, and I did I even got a lump of that moment too, because, in my throat, because, you know, just thinking about the tragedy and tragic circumstance for Nami, because, you know, she was doing all these things over 8 years or whatever to, you know, to buy protection for the village. And she couldn't tell anyone, even her sister. And so whenever we see that moment when she went to dig up the berry and the corrupt Marines come and take it from her, which is a very hard scene to watch. I mean, it's just, it was a very heavy, I mean, this is a very heavy episode in many ways. But, you know, but she did convey that, just like that breakdown of just like all that I worked for, all that I did is gone. And, you know, and no one knows the truth. And so Luffy being there to reach out, and the Straw Hat Pirates, you know, Sanji, you know, offering to make a meal to, you know, get her sister on her side, on their side, as far as just getting information and learning more about their circumstance. You know, again, like, it was a great framing as far as going back and forth between the flashbacks and the present day to color the actions that we've gotten to know about these characters. But as you also said, there's still a whole heck of a lot more to the story. And, you know, and I haven't read the manga materials and or watched the anime version of this, but paring down 15,000 volumes or whatever it is, they really did a great job of, like, I think, capturing the essence of these characters, from what I gather.
Right. Yeah. I haven't really heard any negativity about this show. I'm sure there are, because adaptations always get some sort of flashback, but so far it's been very quiet.
It's been quiet because compared to, like, you know, another thing in this genre, that when it's on Netflix and live action, Cowboy Bebop, I mean, people eviscerated that one. Whereas with One Piece, so, you know, it's the exact opposite. So, yeah.
So it's interesting. We're talking about 2 penultimate episodes. tonight. Because, and I was thinking a lot about this while I was watching Ahsoka. It's both of these episodes at the end, you're like, okay, I'm ready for the finale. Like all the pieces are in the, where they need to be. I had so much more fun with this episode of One Piece Penultimate because it felt like the setup for the finale was like in the background.
Yeah.
Because we were getting answers about Nami. We were getting character development with even Luffy.
Yeah.
We had great Garp conversation happen at a bar tie. We talked about all the strengths of this episode, and all of it had to do with this characters who we've been following and movement.
Yeah.
So and you told me like before we started, like Ahsoka you want to talk about second just because like it did what it needed to do for Penultimate. I think both of these did, but like I can't stress it enough. I had so much more fun watching One Piece because of the character growth where none of these characters said the words "it's complicated" 4 times in the same scene. Oh my God, it's complicated? Are you kidding me? How can you make me like a character less?
Yeah.
And with that, we're talking about Ahsoka right now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, like I said, so since we're moving on, let's move to Ahsoka. So I did like it. And as I said in our pre-show, thought it was a solid episode. And I'm really enjoying this series, and it's another one where I don't want it to end because I feel like it's really starting to hit a stride in many ways, but but it was, a lot of people were like, I did see sort of some mixed reactions to just, on the net, and some of the YouTubers that I was able to watch this week, weren't as gung ho, about this episode, but I think for me, it did what Penultimate should do, because if they had any more big reveals or resolve what Balin was trying to find or anything like that, we all would have been like, a lot of people would have been grumbling. The very people grumbling about this episode was blah will be like, ripping in a new one for like, why did you say that for the finale? Da 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 da. So I thought that this got all the pieces to the appropriate places on the chessboard in this episode, so that that we won't, they didn't add, bring in any new characters, or do the thing where we were worried about of like, one episode focused on bringing in Thrawn, and then the penultimate bringing in Ezra, and then we have this rushed finale. I feel like at this point
they did the opposite.
Yeah.
They're like, this episode is about Sabine reuniting with Ezra. This episode is about Ahsoka reuniting with Sabine and Ezra.
Yeah.
So they did the opposite. They did the same thing. They just did the opposite.
Yeah. But it makes sense though. I mean, but it's not, we don't have to rush it all in the finale where it's like, doesn't give moment, now everybody's where they need to be. So when we move to the finale next week, we don't need to have a bunch of like hurried setup pieces to get people in the spots where, like, Sabine or Ahsoka like showing up on Peridia. Now it's like she's here. Everybody's here. Now let's just what's going on with let's find out what's going on with Thrawn and all the things in the hold of the Star Destroyer, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I didn't like this episode. Because I want to say 80% of it was just action. And the other 20%, 10% of that dialogue was just saying it's complicated, which bothered me because yes, I agree. Like, I understand your points about how, like, we're not going to waste time getting people on Peridia or anything. And no, they didn't do any reveals. I wasn't expecting any reveals. I was at least expecting Ezra to be like, okay, how are we getting home? Like, ask a little more questions. Now you guys are riding off in the sunset. How long is this conversation? Why are you still, like, just accepting the whole it's complicated? Because now I don't, as a casual viewer, as a viewer who has never met Sabine or Ezra before this show, they are not coming off real good for me. They're not. I know that I should love them, but I have to say, I'm just going to call it how I see it. And Ezra came off a bit stupid to me because I'm like, dude, why aren't you putting these pieces together? And while I'm thinking about this, so you're telling me you've been on this planet for how long? And you didn't also realize that Thrawn was roaming around and Thrawn didn't know you were here? How long have you been here? I don't understand. I love how the last line Thrawn is talking about time, and I'm like, well, I'm glad you're keeping time because I am so confused about the way time works right now with everything. But yeah, it's just, I think that I would have liked to have longer conversations, especially with Sabine and Ezra, and to have not continue to hold out on this moment of recognition that I sacrificed the universe to bring you home.
Yeah.
And dude, I also may have like we may not just end up bringing you home, but Thrawn might come with us. So like I wanted more resolution there, but the fact that that's dragging on into the finale, I'm like, oh my God, really? Great.
Yeah. That's a fair point the Sabine Ezra stuff. I mean, from a Rebels viewer standpoint, I liked aspects of the scene because it was classic in many ways, their dynamic from the show back in the, from Rebels. So yeah, so sometimes Ezra not, being the sharpest tool in the shed and just sort of jumping head first and those kind of things. Yeah. I mean, that's him, so.
Yeah.
So, and Sabine and her responses, and being guarded and not telling the full story.
She knows she's wrong.
Well, she knows she's wrong, but it's yeah.
Yeah, she's also dealing with this because she realized at the end of the previous episode when he talked about going home, it just clicked on her in that moment. Oh shit. I didn't think about that part. Like, how do we get home?
Yeah. Well, I guess they're going. Yeah, she's like, maybe I'll make nice with Balin and Thrawn, and they'll let us hitch a ride back.
Yeah, but to your point before about like they're not gonna they can't reveal what's going on with Balin, and I absolutely agree with that because Balin's the most interesting character, and just because he is something I haven't seen before in this universe, and everyone is curious about what's going on with him. They're doing a really good job. And the fact that he even let Shiv go and told her that great line of impatience for victory will guarantee defeat. Like, dude, you are so living out your King Arthur. Like, man, that's like great. Yeah. And Shiv, I like how at the end, when even Thrawn's people deserted her and Ahsoka let her like try to say I can help you, and then Shiv went her own way. I'm like, I don't know. I find it very interesting. So even though we're not going to get Balin, now I'm like, oh, okay, maybe we see Shiv in the future, make this great, like have this great, change of character and also who she becomes by the end of the series. So I think they are doing a good job with that. And I'm still like, Thrawn is exactly how I expect him to be. So that's why I'm not gushing over him, because again, just like what I said last week, he has yet to do anything that really surprises me.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm not saying that to be like a negative.
No.
It's more like just meeting my expectations.
Yeah.
Just there.
I think that's totally fair. I mean, I think, he, even though there was one line where I did kind of like, wait a minute, now you're saying whenever he was talking about when he found out about Anakin being Ahsoka's master.
Yeah.
And he was like, so, yeah, just like your master, you're unpredictable. But then he goes and contradicts it because he says, well, maybe not, he didn't contradict it himself. I think the writing contradicts it by him being able to predict someone's actions who's supposed to be unpredictable.
Yeah. Like I honestly don't remember that, but the way you're explaining it to me, like that sounds a bit contradictory. I was too much like, you know,
Yeah.
you know the secret.
Yeah. But Thrawn, he's being totally consistent with the character that we saw in Rebels, not wasted resources, doing he's letting sort of things play out, as far as, like as we saw in this episode, as far as like, breaking off pursuits because he's always thinking 2 steps ahead of like everybody else.
It goes to it. He's exuding what Balin told Shiv.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about Balin's line.
Yeah. And that's another thing about Thrawn is I love how much he does not like Balin. Like, he's like, we're one mercenary down. And that must be Balin. What happened to him? He's all giving Elsby like the eye. And I'm like, dude, you and your competition.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Which is funny too, given that he's familiar with Balin, but I think I guess maybe he is familiar with the General Balin from back in the Clone War days versus this current Balin who is like, fuck the Order. I'm just going to do my own thing. Fuck the Sith. I'm doing my own thing. And so that's something that he can't anticipate.
Well, I think now, having not known Thrawn that long, but what I understand, especially his dynamic with Darth Vader, he doesn't trust Jedi. And in his mind, you were a Jedi, even though you claim not to be anymore, you're still a Jedi. Like, he doesn't think people can change. So he doesn't trust it. And so I think Balin by proxy for Anakin, you're able to see that more, that distrust for fallen Jedi.
Yeah, you totally see that. Yeah. That's a very good point. Especially because I know that, there's the whole legend story where Thrawn and Vader do interact, and they're doing a nice job, like you said, using Balin as the proxy there for Anakin.
Yeah. But even though he's patient and getting things in order, he still is like, I want the fuck off this planet.
Yep.
He's like, I am ready to go.
He's like, let's go. I got the cargo hold is about full.
now as we wrap up, I think another thing that bothers me about this episode is they've been very good about titling the episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I see Dreams and Madness appear,
mm-hmm.
and then I watch this episode, still very questioning why the heck they chose that.
Yeah. I watched.
Don't get it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking that too, especially when I watched it again last night and saw the title, and I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to see whose dreams, whose madness. Yeah, or maybe
you're like the way like they tell us now. After the opening credit scene, like, this is what the episode is called. Because it's supposed to, like, give you an idea of, like, okay, this is what the episode's going to be about. And yet, with all the fighting and action stuff, I'm like, where's the dream? Where's the madness? Where's the dream madness?
Maybe it's a little bit of foreshadowing because, I mean, as much as it about what's going on here. Cause I mean, there's the dreams, like, we haven't talked about Hera and her court martial at the beginning of the episode. But there is the dreams of the New Republic, being, we're a peaceful society now and we can stand down the arms and stuff. And I will say, I was glad that 3PO did show up and give some, again, tie all of this back to, to sort of ground us in the pre-existing universe stories, as far as, having Leia, being Leia's proxy and then also even, Carson Teva sharing that, the incident on Mandalore, which, again, helps us establish where we are as far as time period now that we're, after season 3 of Mandalorian. So I did like those moments, and even Chopper ready to throw hands whenever, the mirror droid line was thrown out there. So that was, yeah. So those were some of the highlight I liked the start of the episode and also Mon Mothma being like, okay, what's the real story here? Is this a threat really as bad as you are making it out to be? And so I did like, that was a good, tying back it's a little small piece of the episode, but it was good sort of tying everything back to the Star Wars home galaxy, as far as the looming threat, which, could get a little into, so I don't know if it fits into what you were saying as far as the title, but.
No, they should have named it It's Complicated.
Yeah.
Which is how I feel about this entire season, which shouldn't be surprising to anybody, where I do honestly want to like this show, and I did for about 2 episodes. And then I have some issues, especially with Sabine, where I feel like there's a lot of planting of seeds and not enough actual growth, actually moving these characters to unexpected places, and also just to have insight, or self-realization.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, because one of the things when I was watching it, I even mentioned to my wife, I was like, all this, there's a lot of setup here for season 2. They're either season 2 or they're going to carry some of these story threads into Mandalorian season 4 or eventually into the Filoni movie. And I can understand why for someone who didn't watch Rebels or Clone Wars, how that can be frustrating. Because I think for me, I'm enjoying it because, I have that I guess, emotional, that connection of it being like a continuation of a story that I've been, that I've known these characters from before. Whereas I think, for casual viewers like you who've only, who didn't watch the animated stuff, I can see where it would be frustrating to hear. It's complicated without
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, you just heard me talk during One Piece. I don't like feeling as though things are wasting time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like movement. And I'm not saying we're not having movement. Clearly we are. Everyone's on Peridia. But at the same time, it's at such a slow pace. And they're not spending nearly enough time on the not turtle people. Because, that should be at least an entire episode of just chilling with those guys. Those guys seem awesome.
Yeah.
I adore them.
Yeah.
I will give them this. I have adored a lot of the creatures that they've introduced, especially within the last 2 episodes.
Yeah. You're great.
And there's something about Peridia that I just, from a cinematography perspective, really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Visually, there's a mix of Lord of the Rings. There's a mix of Dune. There's just this epicness about that.
Completely agree.
It's perfect, a perfect setting for especially the Belmont storyline. So yeah, I'm not hate watching this.
No.
I
know when you're hate watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really just, I get frustrated by things when I'm like, I want to like this more than it's actually than I actually do.
Yeah. I hear you.
I want to like it.
Yeah.
Really like it.
Yeah. I hear you. We have over the time we've both been in those shoes with respective shows that we've watched together, and and you're right. I completely get where you're coming from, for the reasons that I stated before.
With the not turtle people,
with the not turtle people,
episode. Yeah. Get Grogu in there, it'd be a whole picnic. Do a musical episode, not turtle people with Grogu. Please make that happen. And I think that is it for me tonight. So on that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on X or Twitter at Will and Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBLMONT. Please follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at SNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and Threads at @scene_N_nerd. And visit our website, www.scenennerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.